Another day, another viability rankings thread update for NU. How's it going, everyone? Today I'm gonna cover an update we actually did a couple days ago, started up on it last week, and we've got some very nice changes. You'll see a couple of them immediately right here, but as per usual, before we get too far into the video, if you haven't enjoyed the content as of late, make sure that you do subscribe if you're not already subscribed. I'm on my way to 8K subscribers, 10K by the end of the year. We are really close to 8,000, so if everyone watching right now that is still not yet subscribed goes down and hits that button, make it at 8,000 today, which, you know, I personally love. Now, also before I get too far into it, if I sound like different than usual, I've been dealing with some sort of illness the past couple days, so I'm kind of low energy, really having to work myself up for my YouTube voice right now, so bear with me, but I hope you still enjoy. So, a little different formatting. Normally we'd have just, you know, a blanket, here's all the changes, and then here's like explanations, but Phantom Mystics did it, and he opted to do it like this. So I'm gonna just go top to bottom. There's also gonna be a lot of changes that I think I've talked about wanting to see happen before in previous videos. So a couple of these, you know what, they'll be expected. And if you remember some of these as well, you'll know that I support just because of my personal VR. Just to let everyone know, members do get a couple extra uploads, and one of the most common things I upload is talking about my own votes on the slates. So just, you know, you could see real quick right up here. Got this little thing here. See? It's my own VR. So I voted like all that. Anyhow, to start off with, we got some new rankings. Heracross and Mr. Live Wo Qian reaction. Now, Heracross is kind of cool. It's not a particularly great mon, and I saw some people being like, ah, yes, Heracross only got ranked because, you know what, Rabia used it in a video. I'm kidding. One person said something like that, and they were very obviously kidding. But, Heracross in C rank, I think, is okay. It's not a super common mon, and as it even says here, right, niche pick. The thing with Heracross is there's two things going in its favor. One of them is it's a fighting type that beats up on Slowbro pretty effectively. A lot of our other fighting types are either walled or need very specific sequences to go in their favor to beat Slowbro. We've talked about how like Gallade is kind of able to beat Bro, and it's still pretty contingent on how the terastallizing turns go. But otherwise, you look at Mienshao and Infernape as the other two great fighters in the tier, and neither of them actively beat Slowbro. Technically, Infernape kind of can, but you're running some, like, overly niche set of, like, Swords Dance, Terra Electric Thunder Punch with Iron Fist Life Orb, getting, like, the best damage roll possible with prior chip. Or you're running, like, Nasty Plot with a Gracium, I was saying Gracium Z, no, that's Gen 3, not Gen 3, Gen 7, with Terra Grass Knot. You know, and Infernape's not used really at all, so that's not happening. Shao actively losing to Bluro unless you get the crit Grass Knot with max special attack Life Orb. If you know, you know. But anyhow, Heracross is nice because you just Mega Horn the Bro. And if you force the Terra, that's still really good. Nice thing too for Hera is you always have Facade anyway, so you can always apply consistent pressure to Bro, even if it terastallizes, whether it's to a Fairy type or a Poison type. It can never truly wall Heracross, and if I'm remembering my calcs correctly, if you're a Terra normal, you just two-shot it with Facade regardless, so that's pretty nice. And of course, in addition to Bro, you want to look at the other fighting types, not fighting types, but fighting type checks present in the meta as well. Talonflame's one of the most ubiquitous, Noivern's pretty common, Viabloom's pretty common, and Heracross can dunk on all of them with its Facade, so it's a fighting type that very easily deals with the common checks. Also helps that it kinda checks Crook. I mean, you resist the dual stab. Yes, Gunk Shot does a million, but resisting Crocodile dual stab is pretty nice, given how common it is as a Choice Scarf user. Good enough for C rank in my opinion. You know, something I think some people do disregard is C rank is not A rank. We're not saying that Heracross is as good as, like, Cloister, man. We're saying Heracross is as good as, like, Duraludon or Minior. I think that's reasonable. I don't know. These aren't mons I particularly hold in high regard. I don't hold Heracross in particularly high regard, but there's enough in this meta that in my eyes, yeah, Heracross is fine as a C-mon. And we actually have Wo-Chien also getting ranked. We had, I think it was Ninja. He he nominated it all the way up to like B+, and although I think that's a little extreme, I think Wo-Chien is a fine mon to have ranked. Sadly, it's not for the god set of Choice Band, even though we all know why Wo-Chien actually got ranked, right? But Wo-Chien's a quite annoying mon to deal with. If you recall, Joey and I ran into a wonderful sub-seed Wo-Chien that didn't wall our entire team, but it definitely made the game a lot harder than we would have preferred it to be. And, well, kind of just does that generally, because it's, in terms of mixed walls, it's probably one of the best available. Disregard the terrible initial typing in terms of all the weaknesses you get. Stats-wise, and even still resistances-wise in some cases, it's pretty nice. Helps that Slowbro is super common. I think that's probably one of the biggest things going for Wo-Chien, because Bro is just not able to beat you. It can Scald Burn you, and that is literally it. Otherwise, you drop Leech Seed on Slowbro, you can Ruinate it to keep it low perpetually. You knock the lefties or the Covert Cloak, whatever item it has. It literally just can never beat Bro. I think that is probably the biggest benefit to it. But among other things, your Crook Check. Again, Gunk Shot hurts, but whatever. Your Crook Check, you check a lot of Serena sets as well. You check Rotom Mo, which is, I guess, a mon. You can check, what's it called? There's some other things up here, too, that I'm trying to remember. Kind of Flygon, but U-turn hurts. Reuni, that's one of the big ones. You check Reuni, you can check Thundurus. These have coverage, sure, but, I mean, that doesn't prevent you from being a check. So that's really nice. I think the reason Wo-Chien isn't going higher, whereas in, like, RU, they have it, I think, in B rank. We already have a lot of good defensive grass types. Most notably, I'd say Serena, Venusaur, Vileplume are all better than it, or at least on par with it. No, I'd say better. And so Wo-Chien does struggle a little bit to find a role on teams, and if you're looking at specifically defensive dark types, you're always going to have to pass the muck test. But I think it is kind of nice in a tier that does struggle to find a plethora of dark types. Wo-Chien is at least a serviceable option, and it does provide some pretty nice role comp defensively. Now, the big change! Mienshao joined Slowbro in the S ranks. Now, I kind of disagreed with this, but at the same time, I agreed with it. I have continuously said, I think Mienshao is at least an S- mon, because it's better than everything else I'd put in A+. I just don't think that it's as good as Slowbro, so I hesitate to put in an S. However, we didn't want to do an S- on the VR, so here you go. Mienshao's an S. It is the most consistent Scarf in the tier. You enable literally everything in the tier just because your CC threat is so immense that you get the most free of pivots with U-turn. People have to put so much respect on Mienshao's CC that you force very, very, very similar lines across all your games. I'm not going to say you always force your opponent to go into their, like, sturdy fight resist, but it's very easy to loop them into that kind of cycle because Xiao hits so hard, especially if they're Terra Fight, you really don't want to risk these bad misplays against it because it will claim a soul. And when you pair it up with something like, say, a Chandelure, just as a special wall breaker that has good synergy, or even a Monkey Dory, it's really difficult to come back from the momentum loss. Like, Xiao can kind of put you in a crippling type of sequence where you just keep seeding turns to these wall breakers, and there's really not a lot you can do to break out of it other than risk losing some valuable mon on your team to CC. And, like, I'd love to stay in, for example, versus Mienshao with my... let me think of a random mon. Flygon, why not? But it's really risky, too, because I might just die to Ice Spinner. I might just die to, again, Terrified CC. So I feel like I have to go to my Bro. I have to go to my Vileplume, my Talonflame. And it's just really tough to keep seeding free turns to some of the heaviest hitters in the format. And Mienshao is also one of those heavy hitters. It's one of our best cleaners as well because, like I said, Terrified CC. Very, very, very easy to find late game situations where you just spam your close combat repeatedly and there's nothing that your opponent can really do to stop it. So yeah, Also, I mean, throw in sets like Life Orb, Swords Dance, AV even if you want. Regenerator makes this mon impossible to kill. At least it feels like it's impossible to kill. Great mon. Now we move on to Gallade. I have talked about this a lot. And as we even have here, one of the few mods that can beat Slowbro before and after Terra. That's probably the biggest thing. We can even go back to the NU seasonal series we just saw between OBB and Suku. I'm so sorry if that's not how you say their name. But I talked about in their game 1 how Gallade was going to be super impactful for that battle since it could beat the Slowbro before and after Terra, and that was really OBB's only true way, at least I felt, of managing Bro. And as a result, the early miss was detrimental because it meant the Gallade was going to force OBB get traded on and then, you know, be sacked. Gallade being able to beat Bro like that is immense. Gallade is also very similar to Heracross in that it kind of beats every fight check, except I'd wager a lot more easily because Gallade is probably the worst mon to lead against in NU because it's just so unreasonably strong. And there's not a lot that one-shots it. Like, Talonflame with Brave Bird, yeah, you've got that. But how many other Pokemon can I say really 1v1 Gallade at the lead? Like, Scarf Crook and Flygon, I think there's damage rolls for Crook maybe on EQ? But I'd have to confirm. Flygon I don't think one-shots Gallade with EQ. Shandy is risking at best a speed tie. Diancie doesn't one-shot you with Moonblast, and it's just 2-hit KO'd. Lucario, I guess, could maybe one-shot with a Meteor Mash. Mew doesn't one-shot. Thundurus has to be Acrobatics to one-shot. Like, you see what I mean? Like, you go through the list of some of the top mons in the tier, and a lot of these just aren't threatening to beat you. So not only do you potentially just seed free turns for Gallade to hit you, you also risk it getting free turns to boost with Swords Dance. And that's comparably terrible because then Gallade certainly one-shots everything on your team. So it's really good at forcing your opponent into the worst of turns. It's not even that prediction reliant because sharpness makes it hit so stupidly hard that really just getting it onto the field is enough. Even if I throw off a Psycho Cut and you go Slowbro, you're not even safe on the next turn because you may just get one-shot by my knockoff. You gotta get multiple turns of repositioning correct against Gallade, or make a lot of aggressive double switches to properly contain it. Because otherwise, yeah, it's gonna get one free turn, and then you have to spend the next multiple turns thinking about how to finally get the right position. Very tough one to play against. Chandelure comes up next. I've been supporting this mon for a while now. I think really any special attacker that one-shot Slowbro has some niche. Especially when they have really good synergy with our most common pivots like Flygon and Mienshao on the tier. Chandelure is one of them. Helps as well that with specs you two-shot a Lowland Muck with Fire Blast. Like, I think you do around 60, which is quite nice. So, that's pretty good for it. You're a CC immunity as well, which is kind of cool in a tier with Mienshao being super common. I think there's always going to be a bit of a viability cap put on Shandy, given that you look at the other common Scarfers, you got to deal with Crocodile, Flygon, and both of those just take a massive dump on you. Lycanroc Dusk as well, it will just revenge kill you. But otherwise, yeah. Also, too, look at our top mons. How many sturdy Shadow Ball resistances do you see? Other than Muck, there's really not much. Like, even Crocodile takes a ton from Spec Shadow Ball. And then you're not getting any others till Brute Bonnet down here. And I'm here to tell you right now, Brute Bonnet dies to Fire Blast. You got Incineroar as well, but a lot of Incineroar right now are actually offensive sets with Swords Dance. So Spec Shandy does do quite a lot with Fire Blast on those turns. It's a pretty good mon. Also, decent Monkey Dory check. I mean, Psychic does a lot, but you can Terra Steel. It's not too bad. A lot of them are Terra Blast Ground right now, sure, but you at least switch into a good majority of its moves. And if you're Scarf, you're faster. So, pretty cool. Raja goes up to A-. I think this is less about Copper Raja picking up steam lately even. I would wager this is more people realizing the difference between all of our top steel types is pretty minor. Between Copper Raja, Registeel, Klefki especially, a lot of people don't feel like there's a huge difference in how good they are now. And so I think this is a little bit more about equalizing where they're put. I will say, I felt Copper Raja has belonged in A- for a little bit now. I think it's just generically really good for utility. Between Knockoff and Whirlwind, you just provide a lot to teams. And then you still have a lot of coverage that you can mess with to potentially deal with Pokemon like, say, Talonflame or even Serena between, you know, Rock Slide, Heat Crash, respectively. To just complicate play against this mon. EV spreads are also very malleable. I'll a lot of the time just default throwing max HP, max Spadef, because I truly just don't care. I don't feel like going and optimizing, but you could do, for example, 16 attack Adamant, and in your Heat Crash, one-shots Rotom Mow. I think it's offensive Rotom Mow, so if they run HP, then it can live, but you get the idea. You're able to get pretty quick and easy benchmarks like that. It's pretty cool. So, like I said, less of Copper Raja getting better and more of, Registeel is like kind of acknowledged as not actually that good now. So, may as well have Raj and Reggie closer in rank. Zone, though, does go up. Zone is really, really good right now. I've supported it a lot. I think the Iron Defense set, especially, is quite consistent. It's not even necessarily needed for trapping, although it is certainly nice to have Magnezone trap opposing steel types for Pokemon like, hell, Monkey Dory is a good example. Speaking of Monkey, here he is down here. Even though Florges as well, I like that. Sylveon is a partner as well. Just generally pretty good at enabling them. Meanwhile, the offensive sets for Zone are really, really good too. So whether it's Specs or Assault Vest even, because you go pretty heavy special attack investment on Assault Vest, Zone's really nice at breaking, because let's look at the list of Pokemon in our tier. Let's find the first Pokemon that you are comfortably switching into Specs Zone, or even AV Zone. Alolan Muck is okay enough at switching into AV, but even then you're really pressured. Dragalge as well is pretty heavily pressured. I guess your own Magnezone technically counts, but AV Reuniclus, what are we doing back? Focus Blasting as they Volt Switch? Don't know about that. And you got like Swampert here. You got like a couple of the water grounds, right? But Swampert usage is pretty low right now. Quagsire doesn't actually switch in that well because it's physically defensive, so it's taking a lot on the hit when it enters and having to recover immediately. Gastrodon is just unviable, practically. It's not really unviable, but you hardly see it. And all three of those still have to deal with Terra Blast Grass, so like, I don't know. I think with, especially since AV is more common than Specs, that's probably the worst part about them as checks. Because you're not actually switching into a mon that you wall the next turn if you're not Terra Blast Grassed on the initial switch. You still have to deal with it deciding, oh yeah, by the way, I'm a grass type now. Get fake Seed Flare, noob. It sucks. And then you go to like down here, it's like, oh boy, Rotom Heat and Rotom Mow. My favorite checks. And they're fine checks, because they run bulky sets with Pain Split very frequently, but it's just, it's so easy to make progress with this, especially when you consider Volt is basically free against any switch-in, and the ones that it's not free against, I have Terra Blast for. Very, very good Steel type, as I mentioned, my favorite of them all. I think it is the best. Just easy to get on teams, too. Very, very nice and easy. Monkey Dory goes up. Shouts Phantom being like, I told you so. Now I will say, I don't think that it's an amazing mon, but it fits really nicely in this metagame right now as a lure to Alolan Muck. Terra Blast Ground is just very easy to pull off, whether you're running the pivot set with U-turn, or if you're going Nasty Plot 3 attacks. Scarf is also pretty reasonable because you're, like, again, Alolan Muck context is key here. You're really good at drawing that mon in, tricking a Scarf onto it, and that can maybe enable some teammates of yours that need Alolan Muck kind of contained a bit better. It's pretty strong. I'd actually argue as well, one of the main benefits to it, pardon me, is in the context of Sticky Web. Boots Monkey Dory being the most common set now is actually quite nice as a Sticky Web counter set, because a lot of the mons on Web's teams are pretty slow naturally. They're not necessarily like, because you got Lycanroc Dusk as one of the most common team members, right? Thundurus even is really common. And although those are faster than Monkey, you're also looking at mons like, say, Feraligatr, Cloyster, Torterra, even Minior if you want to go really niche, Chandelure, Toxtricity. Like, these are all rather slow. And so when they can't rely on you getting speed dropped, well, Monkey Dory just has a ton of leverage against these builds, and it's really easy to just say, I don't care, what are you gonna do? So, pretty good at abusing those teams and beating them up. It's actually, I would at least argue, partly why Sticky Web is a bit less good than it used to be. Toxtricity goes up. I've felt Toxtricity is pretty decent for a while now. Especially since the most common ground types just are boom bursted on, then they die. Like, again, Flygon, Crook, these are the common grounds. Rhyperior is a good check, but you still take a ton from, like, Terra Normal Boom Burst. Same with, like, Zone. Like, these are good resistances, but they're not insurmountable threats, so. Whether you go Specs or even Scarf if you want to try and clean up versus more offensive teams, Tox is a pretty good mon either way. Florges rises. The choice item sets kind of end up being better on it than Sylveon. And Calm Mind at least still has a comparable threat level to Sylve because you've got Synthesis. So Florges doesn't actually have to run Wish Protect to get safe recovery. So you end up being able to more easily tap into, say, Terra Blast as a coverage option. You can go Terra Blast ground, and you've got a really nice Calm Mind sweeper with actually pretty competent coverage. And as we said as well, choice item sets are better, arguably, on Florges than they are Sylveon, because you've got Trick. So if I want, I don't have to immediately burn my Terra Blast versus maybe a Registeel or even an Alolan Muck. I can just trick that mon a Scarf or a Specs, try to slowly weaken it with the help of entry hazards over the course of the battle. I'm feeling pretty good. Inteleon goes up. It's still very fast, it's still very strong, and with the water absorbers actually not being that common, Inteleon actually can break pretty effectively. The same issues just still face, or it still faces the same issues that it has in the previous months, where there's a lot of more fast mons now, like Noivern Talonflame, that contest the speed tier it has. And so as a result, it's not nearly as threatening on a game-by-game basis, because it's no longer that untouchable speed threat that it used to be. Rotom-Mow goes up. This is partly, I think, in response to Magnezone. You at least can switch into it, and you're not lacking in durability thanks to Pain Split. But also Nasty Plot's kind of decent on it. You're a good switch into Slowbro. You could probably even run Covert Cloak on this if you really wanted, just to be immune to Scald. It's probably not too bad. But you switch into Slowbro. You Nasty Plot up. If they switch, you get a nice powerful Volt Switch on whatever comes out. You've seen me do this with Rotom Heat, even, and run into a Alolan Muck, and then your +2 Volt Switch is doing like around 40. So it's not too bad. It's decent chip. Fits into the meta pretty nicely. Also, it's an EQ immunity, and depending on Terra types you choose, you can maybe like super abuse Pokemon like Flygon, Crocodile. And we have Glowbro. Glowbro Rise probably seems really weird, but I think the main thing is it is at least kind of a Slowbro replacement if you want to use a different water type. It's still a pretty good physical wall. It's still able to make mincemeat of a Alolan Muck if you want to terrestrialize it, turn into a poison type. It does quite a lot of the same stuff. To a lower degree of efficiency, sure. I think it's people just kind of going, yeah, you know what? It's not actually that much worse, so why not? Let's use it. Then we get to the drops. And you're going to see a lot of Hyper Offense drops right at the start. Lycanroc Dusk drops. It's still amazing. I don't actually think it dropped in usage, by the way. I think I'd have to check. One of our contributors, though, put together a little table that shows the change in usage from April, or not from April to March, from March to April, if I can learn how to speak. And I want to say Duskrock actually gained usage. It was just a very small amount. Let me go see this real quick. You know what? No. I'm just going to assume that it lost like just a minor amount of usage, if anything. But I do think this does reflect people's perception, at least, of its usage. And it's hard to get mileage out of it in the Slowbro tier. That's probably the biggest thing. Yes, you can beat Slowbro. You've got Crunch, and if you Terra Dark with it, then, like, Slowbro doesn't really check you all that well anymore. I'd say the big issue is Accelerock isn't enough to cover all of the Scarf ground types, and just Scarf mons in general, that won't faint to your +2 priority. Even if you go for Sucker Punch, which is a bit stronger than Accelerock, you're still not really safe against Flygon, Crook, Mienshao. You are a bit better into Flygon, for what it's worth. Like, Terra Dark Sucker does smoke that thing. But overall, it's still a pretty tough matchup to navigate. And yeah, you're kind of just limited on coverage, because you want all of Swords Dance, Accelerock, Close Combat, Crunch, Iron Head, Psychic Fangs, Sucker Punch, even Stone Edge, maybe, Trailblaze even. Like, there's a lot of different moves you want to cover every possible check to you, and then every possible Terra type on said check. And you're just not getting that, so... Although it's probably still the best wall breaker in the format, it's a little bit better placed in A+. Cloister Falls, this is partly just reflecting that offense is ticking down in usage, and also acknowledging that Cloister does deal with a lot of mons that will just turn into a water type all of a sudden against it, and then check it. Or a steel type, you know, whatever Terra type you need to be. You got a lot of mons that can do that versus Cloy and just mess its sweep up entirely. And it has coverage for them, sure. You could be like Drill Run, you can be Terra Blast, Electric, or Grass. And that does answer a lot of your checks. But kind of similar to Lycanroc, you're not going to have all of them at once. And with its most effective archetype toning down in viability, Cloister kind of comes down too. Plus, I mean, hey, look at the mons. This is my VR. This is not the official one, although the log ranks are the same. Like, look at... I think this is actually mirrored. This is our top rank. I don't really think you could argue Cloister is as good as these, or as defining to the meta as these. So, there you are. Mew also drops. I think Mew is a weird case. I think the big thing is, despite how unmatched its set versatility is, you can go physical, you can go special, you can go bulky for any of the setup sets. You can even just run utility sets if you want, because it has the move pool to do it. It's just tough, because Mew isn't that strong initially, so it's really reliant on getting the boost. And then if you run the bulky sets, there's still enough that bothers them and inhibits them to where you're like, oh, do I really win? Like, Mew's really leftovers reliant is probably the big one, because you don't really want to run Draining Kiss on Mew. The way I see it is this: Body Press is a lot better, because game to game you just get more usage out of Body Press as a move that you can throw off and hit something with. Like, if I just want to Iron Defense up and then throw off a Body Press, that's a lot better than if I want to Iron Defense up but then need to spend a few turns Calm Minding before my Draining Kiss does damage. And so a lot of time you're not going to have that extra longevity from Draining Kiss's recovery. And that can make this really easy to beat just through offensive pressure with, like, hazards, getting random, like, resisted hits off on it, and again, knock off. Like, this cannot really suffice as a fight check most of the time, because you're just getting knocked by Mienshao, or even U-turned on it. And it's pretty tough. Bramble Falls, it's a good offensive spinner still, but Serena is generally just a better mon. Serena's got the defensive set on lockdown, and frankly, that's kind of preferred in this metagame. I do like offensive Bramblegast, in particular because you're not facing a lowland muck every game, and most teams do struggle to switch into its Poltergeist. As you look up through the VR, there's not a ton of good switch-ins to it, so Bramble still has quite good use for that, but Serena's often preferred just for utility. Diancie drops. I've got no idea why Diancie dropped. I don't know. I don't think anything got worse for DNC. Maybe some of it's people liking Rhyperior more because it's a ground type. But I don't know. I mean, you've got what Phantom wrote here, where, it's just not the premier defensive option. But I don't really think that matters for it. Like, here's my take on DNC. I think Hazard, Diamond Storm Body Press, and an Encore is probably the best set for defensive DNC. And I still think offensive DNC is incredible, and arguably even better than it used to be, because steel types aren't really present. Keep in mind, Zone is the most common steel type. That mon gets mollywopped by Earth Power like none other. It's really good for offensive purposes right now. I think this is underselling DNC's threat, but yeah. It fell. Registeel falls. This mon is just not great in my opinion. I think you have to be Iron Press, and that takes away 2 move slots. And then you have to be Heavy Slam, so that takes away another, so you got 1 more. Do you want it to set rocks, or do you want it to have, like, T-Wave or Earthquake? And guess what? If you don't have Earthquake, you are walled by Shandy and Hisui Typh. Good luck just hoping Paralysis is good enough to slow them down. And you can even recall the video where I managed to trap a Registeel that had boosted to +6, Terrastalize into a Fairy type with my Magnezone, and then beat it down with my own Body Press. Very fun times, very fun times. And it's still a good mon. Like, Registeel is absurdly bulky mixed-wise. It, like Wo-Chien, both of them are just great mixed walls. It feels really passive without Iron Press. And even with the Iron Press, it doesn't really solve the passivity issues when you got stuff like Slowbro running around. Like, I want to run Magnezone over this because at least with Zone, I have a strong Thunderbolt that I can throw off against Bro and, force the Terra out of it. Registeel doesn't have anything that it can do. Let alone if I face something even like a Vileplume or a Mew. Like, I still can't touch them. So yeah. Gator drops, it's literally just for webs that this mon is run on. And if webs start falling off at all, Gator is like pretty bad in the tier. It's kind of cool because it can put a lot of pressure on Slowbro with Swords Dance boosted crunches. But I feel like that's kind of it for its niche. I guess Aqua Jet strength is nice too because you put a lot of pressure on the Scarfers, but you don't one-shot any of them, which kind of is troll. Infernape drops, it's kind of weak. Slowbro walls it, Mienshao's better. I'd also use the ground types before it because they're either stronger or they're about as strong but provide a little bit more to the team overall. So there's that. I do like the potential for other sets beyond Scarf. I think Infernape has a lot of room for set experimentation, but it's kind of like Mew in the sense that I don't know if any of this set diversity really makes it a great mon. Ninetales drops because Sun kind of sucks, and if Sun isn't heavy meta, then Ninetales will not be either. Quagsire drops because it really isn't that good. I don't think it was ever that good, and setup spam is less common than it was. You'll notice a lot of these drops are partly because of offense going down in potency. Yeah, setup spam's less relevant, so Unaware isn't as relevant. And if you want to water ground, I think generally speaking, Pert is a little easier to justify. Avalugg goes down here. This hasn't been really good for a while now. I still feel the need to put a lot of respect on Avalugg's name, because we all know that this will randomly Terrastalize into, like a poison or ghost type and then wall an entire team, and it'll look really embarrassing for the person getting walled. But that's kind of it. I don't need to use it as a spinner anymore because I just don't feel like it's the best spinner. And it probably doesn't help either that if we look at a lot of our dominant hazard setters, most of them don't really care about Lug as much as they used to. Like, Diancie's got ways to bother it with Diamond Storm Body Press stuff. Rhyperior at least, like, initially threatens it typing-wise. Crocodile even, like, I can at least knock the boots, and then it gets a little awkward long-term. Same with Copper. Registeel as Iron Press can force the Terra. Pert can just knock it and flip turn. It's just not that great. Gashadon drops. It's kind of been overranked for a little bit now. And again, similar to what I've said before, there's not really a single archetype that Gastrodon is super, super nice to put onto. So struggles to find teams worth using. Rotom Heat goes down. You know, there's some of this is like Rotom Mo usage going up and it being viewed as about as good. Some of this is, like Phantomir says, Incineroar getting more usage. That kind of takes away some use from it. I'd overall just say that Rotom Heat hasn't displayed much success though as well. And when a Mon struggles to really make a splash in tournaments or even high ladder, it does become harder to keep it higher up in the VR, because it's like, okay, what am I using you for, you know? If I don't use a Pokemon a ton, and then I don't see others using it a ton either, I'm just gonna be more inclined to drop it. But you compare my personal VR to what I like using, like I use Thundurus a lot, so even though I have a lot of people that want to vote Thundurus down, I always end up keeping it highly ranked in my votes, because I'm like, well, Thundurus in my games, I, you know, use it a lot, it always does quite well, and I still see it get usage in tournaments where it does quite well too. So it's a little bit of bias. Like, on paper, Rotom Heat is probably not a B-rank Pokemon, but it's not done anything to really justify moving it up as of now. It could in the future, but for now, it's tough. Scrafty drops. It was never a B+ mon, and it's probably not even a B mon, so it drops. It's just not a really good setup mon. That's probably just the most I can say. Dreadnought drops. I also think this was a bit overranked. It has the niche of one-shotting Bro with Terra Dark Crunch with Shell Smash. That's about it. Vaporeon goes down. Wish Pass teams are not used anywhere. Why is this B rank to begin with? Charizard goes down to C. Sun is bad. Espeon. Sun is bad. And Psyterrain is also, like, not used at all. Gligar is literally never seen. It could probably be unranked. Houndstone isn't seen anymore either. The only niche it really has at this point is that technically it still spin blocks Serena. But that's all. Kilowattrel is complete, just unused. Nobody touches it, but I will say, as Phantom Mystics talks about here, ZS has said that he loves competitive on Kilowattrel and thinks that it's genuinely amazing. So maybe Kilowattrel is a slept-on threat that I just haven't used enough of. But there you go. Meloetta drops. I'd just say it's worse than Monkey Dory. And yeah, I mean, slower than Crook is pretty massive for it. Melodic drops. Nobody uses this mon. Why would I start using it now? Minior drops. You can't tell me the last time this mon swept a team. And then Mudsdale dropped. You can't tell me the last time you saw Mudsdale look viable. I can tell you the last time I saw Mudsdale look useless, though. OBB versus Sukuf in U Seasonal Finals. That Mudsdale did freaking nothing. And then we got a ton of unranks here. Eggialola is just another wall breaker in a tier where there's plenty of faster and equally strong breakers. Ambipom is like the anti-offense mon, but that's not really a niche you need right now. Arcanine, why am I using that over Incineroar? Flamigo, why am I using that over Mienshao? Golurk, C. Eggialola. Goodra I could actually see being re-ranked. Like, Knockoff and Toxic is still good for progress making. I've just not really thought it was any worth using over Jagalgi. That's my take. Grimmsnarl, I would also just reference it kind of being of the mold of Golurk and Eggialola. Just that kind of slowish wall breaker that doesn't really offer a ton else. Hitmonlee, terrain teams are basically dead, so why would I use it? Pawmot. It doesn't even one-shot Slowbro. And again, you have to Terra Electric to be able to spam Double Shock. It's pretty cringe. Salazzle, it sees no usage. This is a mon that definitely could be re-ranked, but for now, no. And it's Sceptile. It's also just, you know, there's no terrain. Now, I will say, something that the voters definitely got wrong. Why is Thwacky still ranked? Why'd we unrank all of the terrain, like grassy terrain mons, and keep Thwacky? Because in my votes, I unranked Hitmonlee, I think, but I can check right here. Didn't I unrank Hitmonlee? Yeah, unranked Hitmonlee, but I did keep Sceptile. Like, I felt like the true grassy terrain core needed to stay ranked. But why is why? Oof. I'll probably bring this up in our chat just to get people asking, you know, hey, should we even keep Thwacky ranked at this point? Very funny update for that though. Anyhow, let me know what y'all thought down below. Any changes that you think could probably happen in the future? Let me know down below. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next time. Peace.